The life of Chris Hani, a freedom fighter who paid the ultimate price of freedom. Hello, and welcome to Real African History, the home of untold truths and legendary tales that shaped our continent. Today, we're diving into the incredible journey through the heart of Africa, where we unravel the gripping story of a warrior whose name strikes both pride and pain in the hearts of South Africans, the fearless freedom fighter, Chris Hani. The life of Chris Hani, a freedom fighter who paid the ultimate price of freedom. Chris Hani's journey is one of bravery, sacrifice, and a struggle that shook the foundations of a nation. But there's more to Chris Hani's story than you've ever heard. Stay with us to uncover the twists, the dangers, and the ultimate price Chris Hani paid for freedom. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single second. And before we dive in, make sure to like, comment, share to your friends. Subscribe and click on the notification bell so you won't miss out on more powerful stories that bring Africa's history to life. Let's dive in. Imagine a young boy, born into the harsh realities of apartheid South Africa. He grows up watching his parents struggle under a system designed to oppress them. He sees friends and neighbors humiliated, beaten, and treated as less than human because of the color of their skin. But this boy refuses to accept this as his future. He dreams of freedom, not just for himself, but for his people. This boy is Chris Hani, and his journey from a small village to becoming one of South Africa's most respected and feared freedom fighters is a story of courage, sacrifice, and an unbreakable will. Early life and humble beginnings. Chris Hani was born on June 28, 1942, in the rural village of Sabalili in the Transkei region of South Africa. His birth name was Martin Thembisile Hani. He was the fifth of 6 children in a poor Xhosa family, known for their strong sense of community and resistance against oppression. His father, Gilbert Hani, worked as a migrant laborer in the mines, while his mother, Mary Hani, took care of the family. Growing up in apartheid South Africa, Chris Hani saw the harsh reality of racism. Black South Africans were forced to live in poverty, denied proper education, decent housing, basic human rights, and treated as second-class citizens in their own country. They were not allowed to vote, own land in certain areas, or even walk freely in their own country. Whites controlled the government, the police, and the economy. For young Chris Hani, this was not just unfair, it was unbearable. These experiences ignited a flame in Chris Hani's heart, a flame that would burn brightly for the rest of his life. But Chris Hani was not one to sit back and accept injustice. He was intelligent and curious. He loved reading, especially books about history and politics. He once said that his father's stories about the suffering of black people planted the seed of rebellion in his heart. Chris Hani education. Despite these challenges, Chris Hani was a bright and determined student. He attended Lovedale Institution, a prestigious school for black students. There, he excelled academically, but he also became more aware of the struggles of his people. It was here that his passion for justice began to grow. He read about other freedom fighters and liberation struggles around the world, like Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, and Mahatma Gandhi. These men inspired him. At Lovedale Institution, Chris Hani was introduced to politics and the works of Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin, sparking his interest in socialism and the fight for equality. He began to understand that apartheid was not just about racism but also about economic exploitation. The white minority was using black labor to build their wealth while keeping black people poor and powerless. After finishing school, Chris Hani went to the University of Fort Hare, known for producing many African leaders. He studied Latin and English but spent much of his time discussing politics and the future of South Africa. He did not participate in any sport, saying, "I would rather fight apartheid than play sport." During his time at Fort Hare, Chris Hani joined the African National Congress, ANC, Youth League, the leading organization fighting against apartheid. He was drawn to the ANC's vision of a free and equal South Africa. But it wasn't long before he realized that words alone would not dismantle apartheid. The government's ruthless crackdown on peaceful protests, such as the Sharpeville Massacre in 1960, convinced Chris Hani that a more radical approach was necessary. Political beginnings. Chris Hani's political awakening intensified during his university years. Chris Hani's journey into political activism began at the young age of 15 when he joined the African National Congress, ANC, Youth League. As a student, he actively protested against the oppressive Bantu Education Act, which severely limited educational opportunities for black South Africans. After finishing school, he worked as a clerk for a law firm, but his heart was set on fighting for justice. During his university years, Hani joined the African National Congress, ANC, a political organization fighting against apartheid. He also became a member of the South African Communist Party, SACP, believing that socialism offered a path to equality and justice for all South Africans. Chris Hani was inspired by leaders like Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and the anti-colonial movements in Africa. Chris Hani's involvement in politics quickly made him a target for the apartheid government. South Africa at that time was a dangerous place for activists. The government used violence, imprisonment, and intimidation to silence those who dared to oppose apartheid. But Chris Hani was fearless. He understood the risks but was willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. Peaceful protests and petitions had not worked. The government responded with violence, arresting and killing protesters. Then Chris Hani realized that freedom would not come easily. It had to be fought for. Driven by a deep desire to see his people free, Chris Hani joined Umkhonto we Sizwe, MK, the armed wing of the ANC. His involvement in the armed struggle made him a target of the apartheid government, forcing him into exile in Lesotho in 1963. To protect himself, he changed his name from Martin Thembisile Hani to Chris Hani, a name that would later become a symbol of resistance and hope. The fighter in exile, Chris Hani received military training in the Soviet Union and fought in the Zimbabwean War of Liberation, also called the Rhodesian Bush War, where he earned a reputation as a fearless and committed soldier. His bravery and leadership in the late 1960s during joint operations between MK and the Zimbabwe People's Revolutionary Army made him a respected figure within the movement. In 1969, Chris Hani co-signed, with 6 others, the Hani Memorandum, a bold letter criticizing the ANC leadership of Joe Modise, Moses Kotane, and other comrades for losing touch with the struggles of ordinary people. This act of defiance highlighted his unwavering dedication to truth and justice, even within his own ranks. A protector and leader, while in Lesotho, Chris Hani organized guerrilla operations inside South Africa. By 1982, he had become so prominent that assassination attempts were made on his life, forcing him to relocate to the ANC's headquarters in Lusaka, Zambia. Despite the dangers, he continued to rise in leadership, eventually becoming the head of Umkhonto we Sizwe. Chris Hani wasn't just a fighter, he was a protector. Many MK operatives, especially women like Dipuo Mvelaise, admired him for standing up for women's rights and ensuring their safety in military camps. His compassion and integrity earned him fierce loyalty from his comrades. Return to South Africa and the path to peace. After decades in exile, Chris Hani returned to South Africa in 1990, following the unbanning of the ANC. He succeeded Joe Slovo as the leader of the South African Communist Party, SACP, in 1991 and supported suspending the armed struggle in favor of negotiations for a peaceful transition to democracy. His influence was crucial in keeping radical elements of the movement committed to the negotiation process, preventing the country from descending into further violence. The assassination that shook a nation. On April 10, 1993, Chris Hani was assassinated outside his home in Dawn Park, Boksburg. He was shot by Janusz Wallace, a Polish far-right extremist who had been supplied with a pistol by Clive Derby-Lewis, a Conservative Party MP. Wallace was caught quickly, thanks to Margarita Harms, an Afrikaner woman who witnessed the shooting and called the police. Chris Hani's death sent shockwaves throughout South Africa. The nation teetered on the edge of chaos, with violent riots breaking out across the country. It was Nelson Mandela's powerful appeal for peace that prevented the nation from collapsing into civil war. In a speech that echoed through history, Nelson Mandela urged South Africans to honor Chris Hani's legacy by uniting for freedom rather than succumbing to violence. Justice and aftermath. Wallace and Derby-Lewis were convicted of Chris Hani's murder and sentenced to death, though their sentences were later commuted to life imprisonment when South Africa abolished the death penalty. Despite multiple appeals, their applications for amnesty were denied, as they failed to prove they acted under official orders. Over the years, there were many legal battles over Waller's parole, with the South African government fighting to keep him behind bars. Eventually, he was granted parole in 2022 under strict conditions, and in 2024, he was deported to Poland. Chris Hani's legacy lives on. Chris Hani's assassination became a pivotal moment in South African history, accelerating the push toward democratic elections, which took place on April 27, 1994, just over a year after his death. His sacrifice became a rallying point for unity and justice, and his name remains etched in the hearts of many. In honor of his contributions, numerous places and institutions bear his name. 1. Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital in Johannesburg. 2. Chris Hani District Municipality in the Eastern Cape. 3. Chris Hani Train Station in Cape Town. His life has also been immortalized in music, literature, and even opera. The Dave Matthews Band wrote the song number 36 in his memory, and composer Bongani Ndodanabreen created the opera Hani to celebrate his legacy. A call to remember. Chris Hani's life was a testament to courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to justice. He fought, not for personal gain, but for the freedom and dignity of all South Africans. His story reminds us that true leadership means standing up for what is right, even when it comes at the highest cost. The story of Chris Hani is not just a South African story, it is an African story. It is a story of hope, sacrifice, and the dream of a better future. Here at Real African History, we believe that remembering our heroes gives us the strength to build a better tomorrow. If you found this story as inspiring and gripping as we did, let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Real African History for more amazing tales from Africa and beyond. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on our next adventure into Africa's past. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Remember the life of Chris Hani, a freedom fighter who paid the ultimate price of freedom. Thank you for watching Real African History.